All-Star game is that it's happening in Chicago this weekend, and the hometown of Emmett Till, who became an icon of the civil rights movement after his tragic murder. The local art gallery is currently hosting an exhibit imagining his life if he hadn't been lynched. While it's incumbent on the WNBA to do more to protect its players, there also should be an expectation on Clark to recognize the broader implications of her actions being, quote, weaponized. Now,
a cable news segment focused on renewed criticism directed at WNBA star Caitlin Clark, stemming from a USA Today opinion column. The columnist argued that Clark's on-court behavior, including disputed foul calls and heated exchanges with officials, contributes to a dynamic where some fans view her as a white player needing to be defended, which the writer suggested carries troubling racial undertones, given that most WNBA players are black women, many of whom are also part of the LGBTQ community. The column reportedly referenced the history of black Americans facing violence tied to claims of protecting white women, and connected this to the timing of the WNBA All-Star game being held in the city tied to Emmett Till's legacy, an association the columnist later said was clumsily worded and partially walked back, while still maintaining that the broader historical pattern she raised was worth discussing.
She did sort of apologize, stating in part, quote, "In my recent column, I made an inartful comparison with the murder of Emmett Till. I intended to connect the issues the WNBA is currently facing with its All-Star game being hosted in Till's hometown of Chicago. I obviously did not provide enough context for that. However, this point stands. There is a history in this country of perceived threats to white women being weaponized against African Americans and the danger that poses."
The segment host pushed back strongly, arguing that Clark's popularity has driven attendance and revenue gains that benefit the entire league, and questioning why criticism of Clark and physical fouls against her have persisted since her rookie season. The guest, Riley Gaines, host of her own show, said the league would be wise to promote both Clark and teammate Sophie Cunningham, given their popularity, pointing to a clip of Cunningham interacting with young fans as an example of her broader appeal. Gaines argued the WNBA fails to capitalize on this because it operates at a financial loss subsidized by the NBA, and dismissed the USA Today writer's credibility, calling the piece's connection between Clark's playing style and the Till case unclear, and suggesting it bordered on defamatory.
To black players in the league. Now, still the issue of aggressive flagrant fouls against Caitlin Clark, like the one you see right there on your screen, that has continued from the day she entered this league. It has not stopped. Here with reaction, the host of the Riley Gaines Show. Riley Gaines is with us. First, your general reaction. And, you know, I happen to watch a game, and you know that Sophie Cunningham, you know, refused to back down. She's standing by the right.
The host agreed, adding that both Clark and Cunningham are skilled long-range shooters, and that continued rough treatment of Clark on the court risks alienating fans and reducing opportunities for the whole league.
To defend women's sports, both play on the same. They're both phenomenal players. They have both helped grow the league and its popularity. What does that mean? That means attendance is up.
Well,
what does that mean? That means more money. What does more money mean? More money for all players in the league. More opportunities for, you know, commercials for all players in the league. Why does the brutality against Caitlin Clark continue?
Yeah, that's
The conversation also touched on a separate controversy. The WNBA Players Union reportedly blocked outside brands from commercially using a viral gesture Cunningham made during an on-court confrontation, citing rules against profiting from player conduct in that kind of incident. Gaines criticized that decision, framing it as an attempt by others in the league to undercut Cunningham's individual popularity, and encouraged Cunningham to pursue her own merchandising, given her rising media profile, including modeling and other opportunities outside basketball. Gaines also praised Cunningham's public stance of not worrying about backlash to her comments, comparing that attitude to a similar public persona associated with President Trump, and predicted that Cunningham's refusal to apologize or back down would make her resistant to cancellation attempts online.
$1 million question. If the league was smart if their goal was to success, right, in terms of profiting, any business, any organization, any league, that would eventually be the goal, right, to profit off of this. They would lean into Caitlin Clark, into Sophie Cunningham, who are the golden geese. I think for a while, Caitlin Clark was the golden goose. Sophie Cunningham is right there with her now. Her teammates love her, people love her, young kids love her. I saw a video over the weekend with, I think it was at a kids camp, and they're all doing the viral pointing meme. But
The host closed by praising the overall chemistry among Indiana Fever players, including Clark and Cunningham, noting that regardless of criticism directed at any one-star player, the team dynamic appeared strong and unified.
the league, Sean, is not smart. They don't care about profits or merchandise or revenue because they subsidize off of the NBA. Now, to speak to Nancy Armour, who is the USA Today journalist, and I say that in air quotes because she is not a journalist. Nancy Armour has no credibility. She is overly woke, entirely biased. The journalist who wrote this piece about Caitlin Clark, who in the world even reads USA Today anymore? I want to know what that.
The 1BA continues to generate storyline after storyline. Stephen A. Smith has thrown his full support behind Sophie Cunningham, taking a firm public stance. He has made clear he does not believe athletes who transition from male to female should compete in women's basketball leagues. He has aligned himself directly with Cunningham's position, and the story has expanded well beyond its original scope, drawing reaction from multiple directions.
Editorial processes that allowed for this piece to be published, because to link Caitlin Clark's basketball ability and her skill set to the lynching of Emmett Till, I mean, even after reading the piece, I couldn't understand the connection that she was making. There is absolutely zero credibility or systematic evidence that Caitlin Clark's fans have been found to be racist or inciting racist attacks. USA Today, I really do believe, was borderline creating a defamation lawsuit here via Nancy. And so I hope we see Caitlin Clark push.
Addressing the Cunningham comments directly, Smith said there is space in the world for everyone, and that he believes people generally have more common ground than they realize once they sit down and actually talk. He said he's there to embrace everyone, but specifically to embrace biological women, and that certain rights need safeguarding. He said he won't waver from that stance, adding that he has never expressed hatred toward the transgender community. He called it absurd to characterize opposition to trans participation in women's sports as hatred toward trans people in general.
Back or at least speak to this, because it's absolutely insane and defamatory in my eyes.
You know, I was watching a game. I was watching Caitlin and Sophie. And by the way, Sophie standing by her remarks to protect women and their right to be, you know, protected in sports and women's sports. I loved every bit of it. So I watched them both. Forget the three-point line. They can shoot and hit three-pointer after three-pointer after three-pointer from 10 feet behind the.
According to Smith, Cunningham's comments were entirely accurate and rooted in compassion rather than animosity. He questioned what happened to protecting the rights and fairness of athletes who are biologically female. He repeatedly referenced swimmer Leah Thomas, noting she ranked several hundred spots below the top tier while competing as a male swimmer, then became the top-ranked competitor after transitioning to the women's category. He argued that anyone who denies a competitive edge exists in that transition isn't using basic reasoning.
For absolutely everyone here, and I think there's room to love everyone. I truly think when you get people in the same room and you have conversations, you actually have a lot in common with a lot of people. I'm there to love, but I'm also there to love biological women, and I think that there are rights that need to be protected, and like I said, I'm going to stand true to that. I'll never falter in my beliefs in that, but I have never once said I hated the trans community. Like I said, I think there's space for everyone. I can't applaud her enough. This notion that you're hating on the trans community because you are not.
Smith continued at length on the topic. He also emphasized the importance of protecting children, specifically referencing young girls in youth sports categories, and reaffirmed that his position on the matter hasn't changed and won't. He declared outright that he stands behind Cunningham, acknowledging he'll likely face backlash for it, though he noted plenty of others share that same position.
Not a proponent of them participating in female sports is utterly ridiculous.
Damn! Stephen A. stepping in the kitchen. You got 4 stove burners going. You got something in the oven. You whipping up a pot or something right now? Uh-oh.
Sophie Cunningham said every word right on the money. There's no hate involved. There's only love we're talking about. But what happened to loving girls who are born biologically as girls? What about their rights?
He stated personally that he doesn't believe male athletes should compete in women's sports, adding that people are free to live however they choose in their personal lives.
Girls who are born biologically as girls. What about their rights? What about fairness associated to them? Leah Thomas, I'm going to keep bringing that name up. 400th plus in the world competing as a male. Transitions to female, and he was number one. If we're going to act like
Wait a minute. Leah Thomas was number 1 as a female, number 400 as a male. Wait a minute.
them. Leah Thomas, I'm going to keep bringing that name up. 400th plus in the world competing as a male. Transitions to female, and he was number one. If we're going to act like transitioning from male to female.
He further highlighted more of Cunningham's original remarks, that she'll always hold this belief, that protecting children, including young girls in that same category, matters deeply to her, and that she stands firmly behind what she said and always will. Cunningham has said she doesn't view herself as political, but insists she has personal values and convictions she intends to hold on to. When pressed on whether her position could hurt the trans community, she said her comments don't come from a place of dislike or hatred toward anyone. She said she believes there's room for everyone, and room to care about everyone, and that when people actually talk face to face, they usually discover shared ground. She reiterated that she supports biological women and their rights specifically, and that she won't back down from that position, while maintaining she has never voiced hatred toward trans individuals.
Like transitioning from male to female doesn't involve an advantage for that trans athlete. I have nothing to say to you. You're not exercising common sense.
Wow. He said a lot more. He said a whole hell of a lot more. We got to get into all of it, man. Stephen A. Smith is not playing games with this situation. He is not playing games. My.
That were deemed relatively common.
Cunningham said every athlete makes their own decision about transitioning and competing, and reiterated that denying a competitive advantage exists in male to female transition isn't logical thinking. Smith said he agrees completely with that framing, and credited her for being straightforward about it.
To quote,
Even that, I think it's really important to protect children, and that's little girls who are also involved in that category. And so I stand on what I said, and I always believe that.
I stand with Sophie Cunningham.
He came out and let it be known. I stand with Sophie Cunningham. Whew, he gonna catch some heat for it too. He gonna catch some heat, but it's a lot of people that are standing firm with Sophie Cunningham, to keep it real with you. Personally, I don't think men should be playing him.
He then posed a hypothetical. What would happen if a male professional basketball player transitioned and joined a women's league roster? He referenced commentary from another sports commentator, painting a scenario of a transitioned athlete challenging a star player like Caitlin Clark on a fast break and causing injury during the contact. He asked rhetorically how dominant such an athlete would be under those circumstances, and said the conversation needs to be grounded in realistic terms.
Sophie Cunningham, to keep it real with you. Personally, I don't think men should be playing in female like sport. That's just my opinion. Look, I don't care what y'all do. Date who you want to date, all that stuff.
I stand with Riley Gaines. I stand with them both. I have 2 daughters. They don't participate in sports, but if they did, that would be my position. And I think it's important to emphasize what Sophie Cunningham.
Smith clarified that he personally supports the LGBTQ+ community and believes strongly in defending civil rights and freedoms for everyone, without exception. But he added that support can't come at the expense of biological women's opportunities. He proposed that just as there are separate leagues for men, there should be a separate category or league entirely for transgender athletes. Swimming against other transgender swimmers, boxing against other transgender boxers, competing in basketball or football against other transgender athletes. He called this a simple, reasonable solution, insisting it isn't a wrongful position to hold.
What Sophie Cunningham said a bit further. She said, I think I'll always believe that. I think it's really important to protect children. and that little girls who are also involved in that category. So I stand on what I said, and I will always believe that. She claims she's not a political person, but she does have morals and beliefs, and she will always stay true to them. When asked if her stance could negatively impact the trans community, Cunningham said she's not speaking out of hate.
He argued that society has become too fearful of voicing certain opinions, and that this needs to change. Not every truth needs to be shared at every moment, he said, but that doesn't mean it should be suppressed entirely. He said it's unacceptable to overlook the clear competitive imbalance created when a male athlete transitions and competes against women, calling it plainly unfair to female competitors. He declared Cunningham completely correct in her stance, and extended the same endorsement to Riley Gaines, whom he has interviewed previously and described as sharp and impressive. He said she spoke honestly and logically, and stated firmly that both women are right.
Asked if her stance could negatively impact the trans community, Cunningham said she's not speaking out of hate. She doesn't dislike anyone. She says, quote, I think there is room for absolutely everyone here, and I think there's room to love everyone. I truly think when you get people in the same room and you have conversations, you actually have a lot in common with a lot of people. I'm there to love, but I'm also there to love biological women, and I think that there are rights that need to be protected. And like I said, I'm going to stand true to that. I'll never falter in my beliefs in that, but I have never once said I hated the trans community. On the trans community,
Smith noted the WNBA is dealing with additional friction beyond this topic, including online hostility directed at several players, with Angel Reese also catching some backlash of her own in a separate incident. The league and its players' union reportedly held a meeting recently to address some of these tensions. Regarding a separate situation involving Reese and a teammate, Smith suggested Reese may have unfairly placed blame on her teammate, though he stopped short of calling it a racially motivated comment. Regardless, his position on the central issue remains unchanged. He stands firmly with Cunningham, maintaining that individuals born male should not compete in women's sports categories.